Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Hey, everybody. Hi, welcome, welcome. Hi. Oh, look at these familiar faces. You guys are adorable. Hi, Danielle. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Good, 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 good.
Yeah,
awesome. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to switch this up here. So, hi, everybody. Good to see you here. So as many of you know who've been in the classes before, I can see you here on a monitor, so I can see if you have any questions. Danielle is there for you for any questions you have during the class and technical needs during the class. And I will be turning this camera down to my counter so that I can talk to you here and you can see that the food there. So you can see me okay. You're gonna see me, right now you see me in two cameras, but that's not gonna be like that the whole class. So, sound good? So raise your hand, you can do it virtually or for real if you have not been in one of these classes, if this is your first time. Liz, Jeannie, hi, and Ishel, is that how you say it? Ishel? And then who else? Is that everybody? Because I know Tina and Judy and Molly and Deborah and fantastic. And I saw Brandon there. Good, awesome. Fantastic. Well, good. Well, welcome. So my name is Colleen Patrick-Goudreau, and the mission in my work is to empower people to make informed food choices, to make informed choices all around, to debunk myths about veganism and to be a voice for animals, and to give people the tools and resources they need to live according to their own values of compassion and wellness. I always say I'm not asking anyone to live according to my values. I'm urging people to live according to their own values. And I've been doing this for now, I don't know, 20 years or something like that, which just means I'm 20 years older than I was 20 years ago when I first started doing this work. And I started off doing a lot of kind of education and outreach. That's really how my work began. And it still is, it really hasn't changed. I started doing tabling and I did street TV and raising awareness and leafleting. And I got started in the First Unitarian Church. So I was doing like services around animals and tabling during lunch hours and working with the youth groups and teenagers. It was really a wonderful time. And that's where I started teaching the cooking classes because I was doing all of this outreach and I found that people all said, I had no idea. And now that I know, I don't want to be part of it, but I don't know what to do. And I don't know how to shop and I don't know how to cook and I don't know about protein and I don't know about protein and I don't know about calcium and I don't know about protein, all the typical questions that we all still get. And I always joke that it makes my life easier that we just get the same questions over and over again because it's really the same 20 questions that people have. So that's really how I started. And that's really what my work is centered around, is debunking these myths. And giving people the tools. And so much of it is just these practical tools. And a lot of it is the social and the communication tools. And that's obviously why I do what I do. So, so Danielle can share. I mean, many of you already know this, but you know, my first book was The Joy of Vegan Baking. We're doing, the popcorn we're doing today is from The Joy of Vegan Baking. What else? And I guess the chocolate covered fruit is from The Joy of Vegan Baking. That was my first book. Now, I don't know how many years ago, 13 years ago, that was in 2007. The Vegan Table followed, and that was really using a lot of the recipes from my cooking classes. So they're recipes that are meant to be everyday recipes, even though it's broken up in terms of how many people you host, which now is irrelevant. But the whole point is that these are recipes from my cooking classes. The ingredients are familiar. I always strive to make sure that these are things that you can find. And these days we can get things anywhere online, but still I want the ingredients to be really familiar. And these are recipes that you would already know and love, you know, whether you're vegan or not. Color Me Vegan is a cookbook that is focused on color, and the whole book is broken up by color. And then Vegan's Daily Companion is kind of a daily inspiration, motivation, information guide at 365 days. And the Daily Vegan, that was right before that, that was kind of a journal, blank journal that was a offshoot of Vegan's Daily Companion. And then On Being Vegan is a series of essays and the 30-day vegan challenges to guide people through the transition. And then my newest book, The Joyful Vegan, which is really all about the social aspects and the emotional aspects of living outside of the status quo. So that's the beginning. I still have many, many more years of things to do, but the roots were in cooking. And so it's been really gratifying for me to be able to teach classes again. Many of you have heard me say that teaching the classes were so much work and I just really couldn't do it anymore. And I wanted to focus on writing, but being able to do this from my own kitchen has been really wonderful. And thank you, Danielle, for helping me. Danielle used to help me in my cooking classes 15 years ago. And so it's a real testament to her friendship that she's still here with me now. So I am going to invite you to ask any questions during the class, make comments. You can say ooh and ah. You can say, can you please repeat that? You can say whatever you like. We also invite anyone to come up and voice your question, especially or mostly when I am switching between the dishes. You can come up on video and you can ask your own question. So hang on, let me just make sure I get back to this because I think that gets, when Danielle gives me back there it is. So you can see both cameras again, yeah? Okay, good. When she gives me back my screen, I think it just changes the settings. So good. So feel free to ask any questions. Everybody can see okay. Everybody can hear okay. So we're going to start with the popcorn because I'm going to preheat the oven first of all. And I don't have shoes on, I do have pink socks on today. So I'm preheating the oven to 250. You can even do this in small batches if you want to use like a small countertop convection oven, but I have the oven preheated and I already have a baking sheet, a cookie sheet lined with some parchment. You can, if you don't have parchment, you can always just like lightly oil or butter the pan. It's on such a low heat that you wouldn't be at risk for burning it, but parchment paper will just make it a lot easier. And it won't add more butter and more oil to the mixture, to the popcorn. So you can make your own popcorn any way you like. Let me move this burner because we don't need this burner right now. Well, we'll need it, I guess, in a couple minutes. But so I have air popped, let me go down. So I have air popped popcorn. This is from the air popper that I've been using for 20 years or something. I'm embarrassed to even show it to you. It's like cracked and it's broke. It's just, but I love my air popper. I just did a podcast episode and a blog post at joyfulvegan.com. You can find my favorite countertop appliances. And so I do have a link to an air popper that I think would be a good one that's comparable to the one that I really like. But you can also, if you microwave popcorn, if you do it on the stove, however you make popcorn, you're welcome to do it with oil as well. This one's just air because we're adding the butter and we're adding fat, with the mixture. And plus I just don't only ever make popcorn as air popcorn. Let me just move this over so I can see your chats. Great, so Danielle's helping you guys here, great. So that's it. And I have to tell you, it was very, very difficult not to eat all this popcorn sitting here on the counter while I was getting ready for the class. So we're gonna start with, I'm gonna bring this over so that you can see. Now, what's interesting is I was shopping yesterday and, I always say for these classes, especially right now, when things are just a little different than normal, I always qualify that if, I can't find ingredients, it will change what we do in the class. And so the recipe calls for corn syrup and I couldn't find corn syrup yesterday. And so I thought, oh gosh, I'm going to have to do a different recipe, but I still wanted it to be popcorn for those of you who went out and got any of the ingredients. So I made like a kettle corn instead of doing caramel corn, and then realized, you know what? And I can share with you the recipe. I started sharing it on our doc, but then I removed it because I really want to be certain that I love it before I share it with you. But I think it's pretty good. It's pretty much kettle corn, which is sugared popcorn. But I really wanted to make our caramel corn. So I realized, you know what? Like the corn syrup really just adds sweetness and the thickness and the viscosity. Let me just do it with agave. So I did it with agave and it's fantastic. I would also say that you could probably do with maple syrup. It's going to add more of that mapley flavor, but that's fantastic. That would just add a different layer and complexity to the popcorn in the end. So I am going to use agave. If you use corn syrup, that's fine. You can use agave. Now you have two options. You can do whichever you want. Sound good? What's the tip? People are giving tips. I can't see. Oh, you're getting, yeah, for sure. Definitely go to Goodwill. I mean, I get a lot of glasses, and what did I get recently? I got some bowls from Goodwill, and there are always appliances over at Goodwill. I see that all the time. So I have Miyoko's butter, and I do find that this one can burn very easily. So just keep an eye on it. You can use Earth Balance. You can use whatever non-dairy butter you like. And then I'm just going to add the agave right to it. You don't have to wait for the butter to melt. I'm just going to add the agave right to it, as well as our brown sugar. So the agave is adding sweetness, but it's also adding the viscosity, and the brown sugar is going to add a little bit more sweetness, obviously. So look, this class is a treat yourself at home class. Next week is the Whole Foods class. This week is the let's treat ourselves class. And my kind of intention behind it was we're at home, we are watching movies at home, we're not going to restaurants, we're not going to special places where we would normally get these things. So let's do this at home. You don't have to wait until we open back up again, which will be a while. And you certainly don't have to deprive yourself of something like this, which is really special. And so I just keep thinking that people are having, movie nights at home, and let's do some special popcorn. I make popcorn a couple times a week. I love popcorn. I usually do just some melted butter, and then we do very different combinations. Sometimes it's chili powder, always nutritional yeast. I always love nutritional yeast on my popcorn. Sometimes we have these wonderful Italian herbs that we'll put on, cumin, whatever. You can do whatever mixture you like. I just lost you guys here. Hold on. Guys, still okay? I want to see you. Where'd you go?
We're all here. I can still see your screen.
Cool. Screen. I just lost you guys. Why can't I see you? But right, so you're seeing me, and then you're seeing the food?
Yeah, side-by-side view.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I don't know why I can't see you over here. I think somehow I think the view got changed. Hold on, let me just change it. Somehow it's
changed it to gallery view.
Yeah, weird. It switched to speaker view. I want to see your little faces. Okay, so basically you can see me just kind of, just lightly simmering it. It's a little harder on this burner because it's not as easy as my regular stove, but pretty low heat. And you can be doing this while you pop your popcorn. So that's that. I'm going to get a little pot holder because it's going to get hot in a second. Hang on. Where's the pot holder? Here. Okay. This particular ceramic pot obviously doesn't have a separate handle. So as the pot heats up, the handle heats up as well. So I need a pot holder for that. So as I said, I've got the bowl of popcorn. So we've already got that. I think in the original recipe, and I think even in the Joy Vegan Baking, I say you can just put the popcorn right on the sheet and you can mix it all in there. Yes, you can, fine. I think it's a little easier doing it in the bowl, especially if you already have the popcorn in a bowl. And I love, look how fluffy, they're so fluffy. Oh, I can't wait to eat that. David, actually, we have a finished version I want to show you as we're going along here. And he was like, can I have some? No, but you can have some after class. So that's really enough. It doesn't really have to go much more than that. And then we're going to add a little bit of vanilla. And I'll tell you folks, if you want to add, so turn the heat off and then add the vanilla and add the baking powder. If you want to add other spices at this point, if you want to add some chili powder, some cumin, if you want to add peanuts to the whole thing, you can put the peanuts right inside the bowl with the popcorn. You can do all of that right now. And that would be the time to put it in. The peanuts you would put in with the popcorn, but you would put the spices in with the melted butter. And I'm just going to put the powder, the baking powder, and you're going to see it gets very foamy. So the baking powder just kind of stabilizes it. And just, yeah, you can see that. Just kind of fluffs it up a bit, make sure that gets all stirred in there. And then I'm just gonna pour this right into the popcorn. You don't have to wait for it to cool. And then we're gonna put it on our sheet and put it in the oven. It takes about an hour. That's why I wanted to do the popcorn first. And every 15 minutes, I'm gonna go just give it a little stir. And that's really the key. Don't do it for less than an hour, just because it will still be really sticky. And the idea is to have it so they're totally separate, just like you'd be eating Cracker Jacks at the baseball game. I don't know who does that anymore, but you get the idea. I don't know if anybody's eating Cracker Jacks at the baseball game, even when we were able to. But so I'm just mixing this. Let me move this aside so you can see. So just give it a good mix. I'm going to use 2 rubber spatulas. I'm using rubber spatulas because I want to be able to dig underneath at the very bottom. I don't know if you can see, but at the very bottom, you know, there's a pool of our liquid mixture. But the idea is to cover as much as you can before it starts to just cool. And once it cools, it, you know, firms up. So you want to just mix it up, get it all stirred. And this was about 8 cups. You can just estimate. If every piece isn't covered, that's okay too. I actually find that it makes it kind of nice when you're eating it. And when you have some pieces that aren't covered. And I will say this, when you're popping your popcorn, make sure you remove any unpopped kernels, because the worst thing is you eating this and you can't tell that there was an unpopped kernel and you just bite right into it and break your tooth. And you don't want to go to the hospital right now.
We have a question, Colleen. Doesn't it melt the popcorn?
No, isn't that amazing? It doesn't. If it were water, it would, but the fat and the baking powder helps with that. But the fat just holds it stabilizes it. So no, if you put water on this popcorn right now, you know how it gets all like, it'll just start to melt. I mean, literally just starts to disintegrate. That's what happens with water, but look at that. So just, you want to spread it out in a single layer on your baking parchment. And if you avoid using your, actually, I was going to say, if you avoid touching your pan, you don't even need to wash the pan at the end, but yes, you do, because this will seep through a bit. I have to eat this. I have to eat that. Okay, that's it. That's it. You can still ask me questions, but I'm going to get this in and then put my timer on for 15 minutes. I lost you again. Change the view again. Hold on. I don't know why it keeps changing the view. It's funny. Okay, I'm going to put this in the oven. Setting my timer for 15 minutes, and then, and you're not going to be able to see me, but everything you just saw me do is what I'm going to be doing when I go over to the oven. I don't want to take it out, but you'll see me. I'm just going to kind of toss it around a bit and put it right back in. Once again, don't eat when you're teaching cooking classes, because now I'm about to choke on a popcorn kernel. Okay, 15 minutes, and I'll come back and let me just wash my hands because they're sticky. Any questions, or if you want to come up and ask me questions?
We had a question from Ashley. Does it matter how close together or spaced out the kernels are?
Does it matter how spaced out the kernels are? No, just make it just so it's a single layer, but you don't have to worry about them spacing out. Because you're tossing it the whole time, you're going to lose whatever order you created when you first put it in the oven. But when you're done tossing them each time you go, and I can show you for one of the tosses, just again, make sure it's just remaining on a single layer. Because you're tossing them constantly, the whole point of you tossing them is to prevent everything from sticking together. That's why we're doing that. And so you're not going to be left with one big popcorn ball. That's why you keep tossing it every 15 minutes. And so that by the end, they're candied, which means they're harder. And even though we're going to spread them out at the very end to just kind of break them up and make sure they're not in one big popcorn ball, unless you want a popcorn ball, because that might be something you like genuinely want. You don't have to worry about them sticking together.
We had another question from Molly. If you added a bit more of the caramel mixture to the popcorn and spread it out, would it make it more of a brittle?
Yeah, I would say it would make it more of a brittle with a little bit more. Sure, yes. You would need a significant amount more, because it really is going to cling to the popcorn. But you'll get more. I mean, you will get more of the brittle in between the popcorn for sure. And I think that's why that's the advantage also of adding some nuts and just doing more like chopped nuts with the brittle, because they'll actually then the caramel will harden on the nuts, and so you get more of that kind of brittle texture. Yeah, you can do that.
Hey, Colleen, in the recipe, it lists baking soda, but you had stated baking powder. Can you clarify?
Sorry, did I say baking? So yeah, I used baking powder. It does say baking soda. Honestly, it's fine. It's such a small amount, either one. So just follow the recipe and do the baking soda. Baking powder has baking soda in it. So that's fine. So it's doing the same thing. But if it's baking soda that I said, I used baking powder, but it'll be fine. Yeah. Cool. Thanks for keeping me honest. See, that's what I need, y'all. What did we do? We've had last week we had made the apple breakfast cake and forgot to put apples in the cake. And then the week before that, or a couple weeks before that, what did we do?
We forgot to record one time, but it was some ingredient we forgot to put in.
Yeah, and like a significant.
You redid the recipe. You re-recorded it because we forgot.
The sausage. You didn't put in the lentils.
Right, the lentils for the sausage.
Right, the lentils for the sausage. Yes, thank you. Yeah. So you got to keep me honest here. You got to keep me honest. Any more questions on the popcorn? We can, you can ask them even if we move on, and you can ask, once I show you the final product, or any questions at all. Yeah, beans in the chowder. Yeah, I probably forgot beans. Yeah, I did forget beans in the chowder as well. I forgot lentils. Lentils in the sausage. We rectified all of that. Beans in the chowder. Let me repeat that. Beans in the bean chowder, and I almost forgot then the apples in the apple breakfast cake. So yeah, I like to actually forget the most significant ingredient for the dishes, but that's cooking for you. That's what it's all about. Okay, are you ready to move on to the mac and cheese? Very excited about the mac and cheese. Good, see, Deborah said she almost forgot the apples too. Look, that's gonna be a perfectly good cake without the apples even, to be honest. The apples are adding obviously flavor and the crunch, but that is a perfectly good cake without the apples. And I wanted to show you that. I wanted to show you that you could make that cake without the apples, and it's really good. See? But you also saw, so for those who weren't in the class, you saw I forgot to put the apples in, and I had already mixed up the batter. For those who are not in the class, I was able to just put the batter back in the bowl and then fold in put the apples in the bowl and then bring the batter back in. The point is that we figured it out, and that's what happens in real life, right? So you got to see what that looks like. Yes, but it's all good. Waste not, want not, indeed. Okay, so I am going to move on to the mac and cheese, and we're starting with our milk. And this is a homemade soy milk. I just made it this morning. It smells so nutty. It smells so good. I want to drink this whole pot, but I won't. And just to give you an idea, the soy milk that we made in the class last week, I'm using about 3.5 cups from the milk I made just one batch. And I would say the batch made about 5 cups. So it makes a pretty good amount. And then this is 3.5 cups, and the remaining cups David is going to use for the cocktail when we come back with that. So I'm going to put the milk on the heat, and then I'm going to show you the rest of the ingredients, and we'll start this. But while this is heating up, I'm going to move on. I want you to see the cashews, and maybe just move the popcorn stuff over here. Thanks, Bello. What'd you say? You want the popcorn? You can't have the caramel pop. David still wants the caramel. You can't have the caramel popcorn yet. I want to show them at the very end. We have to have the big reveal. You can have some of the kettle corn. Okay, so I've got my food processor. I need this for the cashews. And again, this is my favorite. I'll stop saying again because some of you haven't heard me say this, but this is my favorite food processor because this is the large bowl. That's just the standard bowl that goes onto this machine. And then this is the large blade that comes with it. But then I also have a small blade and a small bowl that just fits right into this. That's what I love about this particular machine. I've had this for 20 years as well. As you can see, it's a little worse for wear, but nonetheless. And then I've got my cashews. Now, I think in the original recipe, I didn't say to soak them. The thing about cashews is you don't have to necessarily soak them. It's just going to give you more volume. It's going to make it creamier. I think if you forget, just at least try and soak them for at least an hour. And to speed up the process, you can soak them in hot water. I soaked these overnight, so you can see how plump they are. And now I'm just going to strain them. And you can use cashew pieces as well. It doesn't just have to be whole cashews. So in fact, yesterday I went to a store down the street from me. I'm really grateful I can walk to it. They do have bulk items. Let me cover my milk so it heats up faster. They have some bulk bins. My main bulk place is a drive away, and I wanted to walk yesterday and go to the store. So they in the past, they've had cashews in the bulk bin, but they didn't. They've just been packing things up for people and putting them in plastic bags, which obviously, so she had one bag left of the whole cashews and one bag left of the pieces. So the whole cashews is what I'm using here because the pieces were rancid, and I didn't know it until I got it home. So make sure when you are using nuts or seeds, sorry, my nose is itchy. When you're using nuts or seeds and you get them from the store, smell them first, taste them first, because the worst thing is making an entire batch with something as expensive as cashews and realizing that the nuts were rancid. Same thing with beans, you know, just like, well, you wouldn't know with the beans, but mostly it's the nuts. It's the nuts and the seeds because the oils in them will go rancid or can, okay?
We had a question about when you were soaking the cashews, can you also boil them?
I wouldn't really boil them. No, I would just use the hot water. I wouldn't really boil them. There's no need. There's no need. So just use hot water. That will get them soft enough. That will get them soft enough. A good like 180 degrees, like, you know, a good hot water. But you don't have to necessarily use boiling water. It'll make them soft, even if it's just for an hour, okay? So let me just pulse these, as I say in the recipe, just pulse them. You're not looking to make a paste yet. You wanna add the other ingredients before we do that. So just pulse them. I'll show you the texture, this is perfect. Perfect, almost. Smells good. So not pasty, just pulsed, just broken up into little bits. The problem with doing that is, of course, you gotta get the blade underneath the food. So let me get the rest of the ingredients. I'll show you what these are. And what else? That one will come over in a minute. Okay, so I have garlic powder and some salt. And you can use garlic granules, garlic powder, same difference, some salt. You might need a little bit more salt, but we're gonna start with that. I only did like half a teaspoon. And then some onion powder. And nutritional yeast flakes. There is nutritional yeast powder. I prefer nutritional yeast flakes. Maybe it's because the powder is so much more concentrated. It's just, I find it really strong. So if you can find flakes, that's what I would recommend. So that goes right in. What am I missing? What am I missing? Did I get everything in there? Is that everything in the initial, this next pass? Count on all of you.
Pepper, you put the pepper in?
I'm gonna put the, that's a good idea. So I'm gonna put the pepper in. You know, wouldn't have changed everything. Oh, you see all the steam? If I didn't. The only reason I ask for, I call for white pepper and not black pepper is just because of the color, but it's fine. If there are recipes, if you're making something and you don't want to see the specks of black or red, like depending on what kind of pepper you're using, that's what white pepper is good for. It's not a big deal. So just do a couple turns of some black pepper. It's fine. Okay, so just give more pulses. I'll show you what this looks like. I'm going to show you what this looks like without lifting it off the blade because that'll be hard to get back in there. So give me one sec. Can you see in there? You can kind of see in there. All right. So that's kind of what it looks like. Still like small pieces and our milk boiled over a little bit. Okay, what was that? That was the cashews were in there, right? Okay, so putting that aside for just a moment, let me bring back the milk. These little burners work so ridiculously well that it started like boiling. I had it on a really low heat. So that is boiling, and now I'm gonna use a whisk for this. I'm gonna use a whisk And I'm going to whisk in the oil, and I'm going to whisk in the cornstarch. You can use kudzu, you can use whatever thickener you like. I'm just using a cornstarch. Can you see that okay?
Elaine, we had a question. Instead of a food processor, can you use a blender?
Yes, yes. The answer is yes. As I often say about blenders, it's just a little harder because everything winds up underneath that blade because it's just very low. But you can do it. You might just have to scrape underneath a little bit more than you would with a food processor, but absolutely you can use a blender. Yes. You can see I just use different things depending on what I want in the end, but yeah, I would say you can use a blender for sure. Okay, so added our oil. You can use coconut oil for this. It's going to give you more of a coconut flavor, but if you want, you can. Okay. And then I'm going to just whisk in the cornstarch. Okay, and you really want to make sure that gets really well incorporated because, you know, cornstarch can get very clumpy, and that's not what we want. I don't think I added any salt to the popcorn, did I? Or the vanilla, did I? I don't think I did. Did I add the salt?
I didn't see, I don't recall the salt, but you added the vanilla.
I added the vanilla. Okay, but this, so yeah, so add salt when you're making when you put the baking powder or baking soda in, add some salt then, because you're going to want there to be some salt. Okay, so this is basically our milk mixture, and this is what's going to go into our along with our already pulsed cashews and the spices we added. And we're going to do this carefully because obviously this could be a bit of a mess. And then we'll add the miso and the lemon juice at the very end. Okay. This could be really messy. And it's hard, you know, so it might even be easier with a blender because you can use the chute. I can use the chute here, but it's going to get, it's a pretty small chute. So that's starting to get blended. Let's try it. Actually, I might be able to use my little funnel. Let's try that. It might be a little easier to pour it in. Yeah, let's do that. Give that a try. Oh, this looks great. Okay. Pausing for the moment because my timer just went off and I want to get our popcorn. So give me 1 second. Let's just put that aside. If you have any questions, just hang on for 1 second. And let me grab my little, I'm going to put it down on something. Hang on. Put it down on here. You can do this right at your stove, at your oven when you're doing this at home, but I'm going to show you just quickly so that you see. So just, you know, you can do this right at the stove. But the idea is to just kind of mix it around. Just toss it a bit. I think I need the 2 spatulas. The one's fine, right? Flatten it out again. That's all you're doing. And then putting it back in the oven for 15 more minutes. And you're just going to do that 3 more times. 3 more times. Right? Yeah, I guess 3 more times. Okay. Back to our, smells so good. This smells so good. That. Taste. Now the miso is going to really change the The miso is the umami flavor in this cheese. That is what is going to give you that umami flavor. Yeah, so we want this tang, we want that bite in the back of the throat. That's what we associate with that cheese, with cheesy sauces. And same thing with the sour lemon. So these two are really going to make the difference. So I've got some light miso, white miso. Red miso is going to make it a little stronger. So if you're using red miso, I would use a little less. Taste it and see if you want to add more. This is also going to add our salt. That's why I was pretty conservative with the salt. I didn't add a ton. So I'm going to add the miso. And lemon juice.
We had a question from Holly.
Yep.
She has a smaller food processor. Should she use that for the dry ingredients and transfer to a blender when it's time to add the milk?
Yeah, I think so. I think so, because then you'll get everything mixed up pretty well. Because I worry about it being in the blender, just not being able to get mixed enough. Yeah, I would do that. Just use the, that's perfect. Use the small food processor for the nuts, right? And the spices, and then put the milk and transfer everything to the blender. Absolutely. You don't need me, it's brilliant. You need that. Okay, so I'm just gonna cut a lemon. And actually, I've said this so many times, you can't undo certain things. It's really hard to kind of start messing with citrus or salt. So don't overdo it. So err on the side of caution when you are putting salt or citrus into any recipe. So I would add half a lemon first. Every lemon is different. Some are more sour than others. Some are more, some are sweeter. So I'm gonna first add just a half a lemon. This is just a Eureka. It's not even a Meyer, so it's not gonna be super sweet. So let's see how that is. And back on. Ooh, it smells so good. Now I think something I put in your recipe, and I'll clarify it at the end of class. Oh, that's really good. I want some more lemon because the saltiness is really forward, and I want a little more of the brighter lemon juice. So test it yourself, trust your own taste buds, and do what you think is best. What I was going to say was what I want to clarify in your recipe is I talk about what you can do with that recipe to actually make it a hard cheese. Hard cheese is probably the wrong word, but more set up because it'll still be, well, I mean, it'll be a sliceable cheese. And that's just a matter of using agar, which is the vegetable-based gelatin, the sea vegetable-based gelatin. And you can add that to this cheese, just like we've done. And I'll give you the exact ratios of everything. And then you would do everything we're doing here. And then you would put that in whatever kind of, I guess at that point, then you would mix in the agar and then you put it in whatever mold you want. And it'll harden up like that. It'll set up. This is good. You can see the thickness. You can make it a little thicker if you want to add a little less milk. And this is what's nice about this is while you can't remove the lemon juice or salt, you can add a little more milk if you needed to. So if you found that it was a little too strong, you do have some flexibility yet. But this is, for me, a good texture. I'm adding it to macaroni, so it's going to soak in the pasta. And the other thing I also said in the recipe, but I'm not sure if it was clarified, was you can, I think I say see below, but I didn't include it, is, and I'll include it after the class, is you can bake this. So you would, I'll show you what we're gonna do. We're gonna mix this with the macaroni, with the pasta, and then you can bake it and have like basically a macaroni bake. That's so good. It's really good. David's like, what are we having for lunch? Soup? Okay. Yay! Oh my God, it's so good. And this sauce, again, you can make it thicker by adding less milk. The cornstarch is gonna thicken it, and it's actually gonna thicken up a little bit more over, if it sits for 15, 20, 60 minutes, it'll thicken up a little bit more. But this is now your cheesy sauce, and you can use this for, anything. You can use it for vegetables, steam some vegetables, roast some vegetables. and then use the sauce on it and then also bake it, or the pasta, which I already have made. So I had some little macaroni. You can use penne, you can use whatever you want. Add however much you want. I do think this would be a really great, like at the end, especially if you baked it, to add like the coconut bacon at the top, or shiitake bacon, or any kind of bacon that you make, would be fabulous with this cheese. So add, however much you want. That's gonna really, I made about 16 ounces of the dried pasta. And so I didn't use the whole amount that I made, but that's it. That's everything. And so serve this, whether you bake it or not, I think would be really great with some coconut bacon. How's that look? Isn't that good? That's your macaroni and cheese, and you don't even need to go buy anything store-bought. It's so good. A little bit of ground pepper, I think would be really good. A little smoked paprika when you serve this. It's so good. I'm so happy. Really good. Any questions?
Yes, we have a question from Lisa. 2 questions. Do you have to use cashews, and can you freeze the mac and cheese?
Good question. So the cashews are just they're not even really a nut, but they're just a really soft nut. And I think the only other nut that's going to do this kind of creaminess is going to be like a macadamia. They both have that same texture. Your almond is going to be a little too grainy. What else would it be? I mean, cashews or macadamias are really the only 2 that I can think of for this. As far as freezing it, I haven't frozen it, so I don't want to answer that. I'm going to put it back on you and say, why don't you try it and see how it goes? Has anybody else frozen any kind of cheese sauce like this, or already mixed in with the macaroni? I mean, I wouldn't mix it in with the macaroni because it's going to change the pasta. But has anybody frozen this kind of sauce?
In my house, so the cheese sauce never lasts to freeze it. But I guess I'll try. Molly had a question. What about silken tofu?
Well, yes, and I think actually Ashley has a really good suggestion. I think sunflower seeds could really work as well, for sure. And I think sunflower seeds would be soft enough for this. So that's what you want, is you want a nut or a seed that's going to get soft enough to be able to create this creaminess. You'll need a lot more sunflower seeds. Don't ask me how many more. Well, I mean, you want the equivalent, I guess, but they're just not as dense as cashews. Soak them, do the same kind of thing, and try it with sunflowers. I think that's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. They're a little less mild tasting, like than cashews. You're going to taste the sunflower seeds, but they're delicious. Like, that's fine. Silken tofu, for sure. I mean, I've never done this recipe. It's going to call for a little bit of different ratios, but silken tofu is definitely a foundation you can use for this particular kind of cheesy sauce. Absolutely, yeah. But it's not going to be exact ratios. But I'm sure someone has recipes out there. Look at this, it's getting thicker. I want you to see that. It's just getting a little thicker. That was just my excuse to like have more spoonful. Okay, let's move on to the chocolate sauce, but keep asking me questions and you're welcome to come up. Okay. I'm gonna move this, and it's very sad. I'm not gonna put this over by David because he might eat the whole, he can't hear me, he has his headphones on. Okay, I have a little bit of milk left, and there's actually a little bit of globules of the cornstarch. I didn't use the whole thing, but most of it. So do what I did, kind of first see if it's the texture you want. You can add as little or as much milk as you want, depending on the ultimate thickness, okay? So you have that option. So use 3.5 cups as a guide. Maybe you kind of start first with like 2.5. Have enough, have 3.5 if you need it, but I would start with a smaller amount. Now you can see the little spill we had from the milk. Let me just rinse that. Okay, little milk spill. And we're going to use this for our chips. Now for the melted chocolate, you can absolutely use a double boiler. I will show you how to do that. You can melt the chips directly in the pot, which I might just do. You just have to be really careful that you don't burn them. That is the main reason you do double boilers. The downside of using a double boiler is that if you get any water in your chips or just chocolate as you're melting it, it could seize the chocolate. It'll seize it up and it'll stop melting it. So just know that if you're going to use a double boiler. Now most of us don't have official double boilers. I don't, but all you would do is use a one size pot, a smaller pot into a larger pot. So I'm not going to use, these are pretty similar in size, but like you would use a large pot like this, and you would put just a little bit of water. So when you boil that water, then you put your smaller pot on top. The heat from the water boiling is going to come up and melt the chips. So the benefit of that is that you don't burn the chips. So we're just going to be really careful. The downside is if you have too much water in this bottom pot and this gets pushed down, that water can seep up and flow into where your chocolate's melting and it'll seize it up. Okay, so you just don't want before, because you can add liquid after your chocolate's melted, but you just don't want it to do it while it's in the middle of melting it. Does that make sense? I'm using chips. I'm using semi-sweet chips. I think I did. Didn't I? Oh, I did. I actually, this was just my sample pot. I already have the chips measured out. These are the chocolate chips. They're just semi-sweet chips. You can use any kind of chocolate you prefer, any kind of chocolate you love. I have them already here in the pot. And then let me get my spatula ready.
Colleen, we had another question from Liz. I've also used a heat-proof bowl in the pot for a double boiler.
Oh, that's a great idea. For sure. Absolutely. You can do that as well. You're going to do a low flame either way. So heat-proof bowl sounds great. Kind of ceramic bowl, like a crochet would work. And then obviously, whatever you're going to use, and I like using a rubber spatula when I'm doing melted chocolate. So I have this on a very low heat. But again, make sure it's dry. And I like using a rubber spatula. It's just a lot easier to mix the chips around without the chocolate getting really stuck. I use wooden spoons for everything else, but it would just get into the wood. You know what I mean? It just gets too hard to get the chocolate off, and you want to make sure you get every bit of chocolate in your ultimate recipe. I have some dried apricots, and I have an apple I'm going to cut up. All of my strawberries have been recently used and they're frozen right now. We also got some cherries from the farmer's market for those of you who were on the class. That flat of strawberries, most of those got frozen. And the cherries also, we ate a lot of them fresh, but we froze the rest. So that's the main thing. I'm gonna let that melt and I'm gonna keep an eye on it. The other thing is whatever you use for dipping, you want to make sure that's also dry. So, because what will happen is like over time, like your strawberries, as you're continuing to dip, because you're going to keep doing it over and over again, if they're wet, it's just going to get really messy and then the chocolate slides off. So there's a bit of an art to just making sure things, it gets a little messy as it goes on, to be honest. But the drier whatever you're dipping, the better. So that's why I like using like dried fruit, because it's gonna work really well. And I'll do the apples at the end because they're gonna be wet. I'll just leave them at this size. I just have them this size. You can do whatever fruit you like. This is a Fuji apple. All right, you can see that melting really nicely. So just don't go far away from your pot. All right, I'm gonna just go stir this really quickly. I just had another 15 minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Where's my spatula? I'll use this one. I keep throwing them in the sink and I keep losing them. Pull it out a little bit and then just give it a stir. Oh, it's so yummy. All right, I found an unpopped kernel. I'm gonna pull that unpopped kernel out. So look for that when you're stirring. Oh, I found another one. Found another one. Oh, I found the third one. And the fourth one. So it's actually easier to do this when your popcorn is just, just popped and it doesn't have the syrup on it. That's the easiest time to search for any rogue unpopped kernels. And I did not do that. So make sure you do that and then when you're stirring it, that's a really good time. Look how silky and gorgeous that is. Oh my God. Did I set this for another 15? Yes, okay.
Hey, Colleen, Molly had an interesting question. If you wanted to add spices to the chocolate, when is the best time?
I would do it right about now, like once it's melted. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can add some cinnamon, you can add some chili powder. That would be super lovely and kind of make it like a Mexican chocolate. Yes. Yes. Oh my God, I want to, it's so gorgeous. Now, in terms of a tool, you can certainly just use your hands. Maybe use like a small tongs. I didn't have like a little tong. Oh, yeah, like something like this, like a small tong. I have no idea why I have this. This is like an ice. Doesn't look like kind of like maybe for ice. So that would be a good, there's a couple chips on my spatula. I might have to eat them. Oh my God, seriously, if I did that right now, I'd have like chocolate all over my face. I just know it. It would be really embarrassing. But I'm gonna put it aside here, getting off as much as I can. And now I'm gonna turn it off the heat. So the heat's off. And here's the thing, as you're dipping, you can turn the heat back on again. Okay, so I'm just gonna do this for a couple, and then, you can serve these pretty quickly because you would wanna put these in the refrigerator and then let it set up and they'll be nice and hard. Yeah, I'm just gonna set it down on the plate. Can you see me just setting it down there?
Yeah, we can see that. Liz was asking, would orange slices work?
Yeah, for sure. It's just gonna get wet. So you just gotta pat them dry before you put them in and just accept that it's just gonna be messy. And it requires some patience. It requires a little bit of music and some Zen, rinse and repeat kind of thing. Now, if you wanted to cover this whole thing, you can do that too. Like you can do that, right? And then you've got the whole thing covered. I actually think it's more elegant to just do half of it. I know that sounds sacrilege to say that you cover half of it with chocolate, but I actually think it's more elegant. Don't you think? Don't you think it's prettier with just kind of half of it?
Yeah, and then you don't feel bad eating more of it.
You don't feel bad eating more, and it's a little less messy as well. Because even though this will harden, you're still using your hands. So I just think it's a lot easier to pick up than when you have half of it not covered in chocolate. So let's do this with a couple apples. You can do more chocolate. Okay, that's going to be a little messier. Just depends on what tool you're using.
Colleen, we're laughing over here in the chat because we're just like, there should be chocolate dipping music, and we're wondering if it should be a Spotify playlist.
Oh, I can hear it. It's totally I think it's Al Green. I think something really sexy. And yeah, I think absolutely there should be a Spotify. Someone should search to see if there's a chocolate dipping Spotify list. So that's the idea. You get the idea. So let me finish with the apricots. I only had a few of those. And then I'll put these in the fridge so you can just see what it looks like. It's also obviously glossier when it's still melted, and it becomes a little more, what's the word? Opaque, what's the word? Dull when it hardens up. But that's the idea. I'm not in a patisserie in Paris, but that's the idea. And then obviously once it's all melted, you can transfer these to a different serving dish, and it would be a lot more elegant. But that's it. And that's what's nice about using like your favorite chocolate. It doesn't have to just be chocolate chips. It can be your favorite chocolate that's already even flavored. And then, or you can flavor it yourself. You can see this is becoming a little, it's, a little more dull. You can reheat this. So you can put it back on the heat. I'm sorry. Okay. I just had to do that. How can I not do that? That's just like, no mortal could resist that. This is such a mess. Okay, I'm gonna put this in the fridge. Hello, we need you. You're up. It's out of the fridge. Okay, and then I think it's a good time for David to do the cocktail, and then I'll come back and I'll show, well, I'm not gonna go anywhere, and then I'll show you the popcorn and I'll show you the chocolate already set up. But let me know if you have any questions about that. So I just thought it was kind of like a fun treat, easy to do, pretty easy to get chocolate these days, right? You can go anywhere to get chocolate or chocolate chips. The thing about chocolate is that obviously it is always by nature non-dairy. Chocolate by nature does not have dairy. It's only when you add cow's milk to it that it becomes not vegan. And so the problem is, in terms of definitions, a lot of different companies play with these definitions and have changed them. So just because it says semi-sweet, which is by definition vegan, it doesn't mean it doesn't have dairy. So a lot of companies like Nestle will call it semi-sweet, but they still put some kind of dairy derivative in there. So just look on the label. If it's dark, again, same thing, by definition, it is vegan, but just look on the label because there are companies that will still add some milk derivatives. What? Someone's coming with some cocktail stuff. Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Just give me a moment to get a couple things.
All right, so David, and he's already added the recipe to our sheet for today, the info sheet. Okay. And so I didn't reveal it. Let me know what you think. I guess we're very mindful about what the cocktail is for the different themed classes, but I tend to not add the recipe just because we're still working stuff out. But if it's easier for you, if you'd prefer that we get the recipe for the cocktails on like I do for the food, we can do that. We already know what we're doing next week for next week's class. So excited. But for this week's class, again, in the spirit of this being about treating yourself, I wanted something a little more decadent, something a little richer. So that's why we're doing a White Russian, but it's actually an Irish White Russian, and David will explain why. And next week's class, which is the for the love of whole plant foods, I wanted something very botanical and something very floral for whole foods. So I'll tell you what that's going to be in a little bit. But anyway.
Hey, Colleen, can we ask you one question before David gets started? Was choosing dark chocolate or semi-sweet just a personal preference?
Yes, totally, Judy. So whatever dark chocolate you want to get. I mean, semi-sweet technically is, it's a dark chocolate. The designations of the different chocolate just has to do with how much sugar gets added to the cocoa beans. And so semi-sweet already has a pretty good amount of sugar in them. And dark, obviously, there's a whole range. So you're going to have some that's like really, really dark and mostly bitter, and then a whole range. So it's totally up to you, whatever chocolate you want to use. Absolutely. Yeah. As someone who really drinks alcohol, says Molly, I would love to have the recipe ahead of time so I can make sure I have everything. Cool. Absolutely. And we're very mindful of that too. I mean, look, in the end, there's going to be things that David makes that you're not going to go buy the ingredients for. It's just kind of novel. We didn't expect that we'd be doing these like cocktail segments for each class, but it's really become fun. And David's so good at doing the mixology, and it's been fun. So this is definitely kind of old school 80s, kind of drinks. I remember raiding my mother's liquor cabinet when I was young, and because she always had Kahlua and of course milk. But yeah, so thank you for that. I will make sure we have the ingredients on there.
So, as Colleen said, we're doing an Irish White Russian. Should I be looking up there, or are you gonna?
Yeah, so you look up there, and then I'll turn this down here so that people can see. Right, does that look good, everybody? Good.
All right.
Okay.
All right. What's a White Russian? So a White Russian is vodka, Kahlua, and milk or cream usually. A Black Russian is just vodka and Kahlua, so no cream. So, and you'll see the colors when I make it. We have a bit of a twist in today's because I'm going to be using something called almond, which is from Bailey's. It's an almond liqueur. So it's vegan. It's you can find it. I got this at Bevmo, for example. It's a nice way to get a little bit of that Bailey's kind of thing, and having it be non-dairy, of course.
And
it's glass.
Glass. Because so the thing is too, especially when we're doing, the camera's very high. Especially when we're doing, when I'm doing anything, I'm always mindful of, this is how I cook and, do things at home, is that we just try not to buy plastic. I get that that's not going to be the case for everybody all the time, and it might not be what you want to do. So what I'm going to share with you are going to be the things that I know I can do as zero waste as possible. And you'll see that in the pizza class. We're going to be doing the cheese that we're doing. But look, you can get the Califia. Their creamer is amazing. You can talk about that. But the fact that we were able to get this Bailey's and it's in glass, that's just kind of super awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that a vodka?
So this, so why don't I kick it off? So this is actually pretty easy to make. Ultimately, you don't need a shaker. I don't need citrus, kind of stuff up or muddle anything. It's pretty straightforward. So I've got, I think I've got everything here that I need. 4 things that I need to basically make this. So this is vodka. I know it looks like moonshine or something like that. This is actually vodka. I had a bunch of little bottles that I gotten from an event, and I finally just combined them all. So this is actually Tito's vodka. It's made in Austin, Texas. It's very popular, but very easy to make. So I'm going to do 1 ounce vodka. And you're going to see I've got a tumbler here with ice. That's all you need. Then I'm going to do 1 ounce of Kahlua. Kahlua is this coffee liqueur, very popular. I'm going to do 1 ounce of that. Then I'm going to do 2 ounces of the Bailey's. And again, this adds, the alcohol content in here is about 13%. Kahlua is about 20%. The vodka is about 40%. So I'm going to do a couple of these because it's a little bit lighter in terms of alcohol, and it's just a nice flavor profile in here too. You get a nice almond sense. And then 2 ounces of milk. Bella, what milk is this? Soy milk?
No, it's just soy milk. Yeah.
So 2 ounces of this.
Tell them they can use any milk and talk about.
But yeah, you can use any kind of milk. You can also use creamer. Nut milks are really nice in this. Creamers as well, like you were saying, Califia is very nice. You can see here, it's kind of a nice, interesting blend there. See it up here too, how it's separating. And then normally what you'll do is you'll just stir it a bit, mix it up.
I didn't realize this class was kind of more like a, I didn't realize
Throw a straw in it.
This is like a kind of like a 1980s class, isn't it? Like I just kind of realized that.
Is,
well,
sure.
With like the White Russian, the mac and cheese, the caramel popcorn, and the chocolate covered, yeah, like I didn't quite realize that. All right, ready? Ashley's liking it.
I'm making a second one here for myself. How's it taste?
Oh, it's so good. Oh my God. And what's nice about this version, and you can do whatever you want, but we've done it with the, they used to be called, like some people say Califia. It's actually supposed to be Califia because
California.
Yeah, because they named it for California, so that's how the name. So it's really not Califia, it's really like Califia, but anyway, it's stupid. The point is, we've done it with the hazelnut creamer.
Yeah, the creamer is like super rich and thick, and the hazelnut is just murderously good.
So good. But that's the thing, is that the White Russian tends to be that very creamy, very thick, very sweet. This take on it makes it a little lighter, but the Bailey's adds another nice element as well. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah.
There you go.
Awesome. There you go. Irish White Russian.
It really is like drinking a sundae through a straw.
Oh, it's so perfect. I love it. That's amazing. Thank you, Bella.
There you go, folks.
See if there's any questions.
Enjoy. Any questions? Let's see. No. Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward drink. It's easy to make. And yeah, like I said, the Bailey's is maybe the most fun part about it. It's a little bit different, but otherwise everything else is really easy to find. So thanks so much and enjoy.
Thanks, Bello. Thank you. Isn't he awesome? Yay for David. Woo! Okay, so I just did another turn of the popcorn, and now what I want to show you is I'm not going to take my popcorn out yet because I want it to go for just another 15 minutes, but I'm going to just show you what you would do if it were done. So you would take your, thank you, Bello, and just give you that. Thanks. So you would basically, take that tray out of the oven and just pour it right onto, you can put it right on your counter. You can put some parchment down first, but the idea is to just, because I just tested it, it's actually really nice. It's separated really nicely. It's hardened. And so I give it another 10 minutes, but it's pretty much done. So let's pretend all of this was on the tray. Just dump it right onto a parchment or just right onto your counter. And then just kind of, because it's going to be a little more wet just coming out of the oven, just kind of use a spatula and just separate it. And now you can see, this is how I was able to pack it, was completely, it's all separate. So you don't have these big clumps, which you might like the clumps, especially if there's peanuts and stuff, but that will happen naturally. Some of them will clump together, but isn't that nice? You can hear how crispy that is too. So that's what I would do when that's done, and that's the end of it. And now that's going to be our dessert after our very decadent 1980s treat yourself at home recipes. So what I owe you is I'll give you some modifications for the mac and cheese, just so you know how to bake it, and I'll give you the modification that includes how to add the agar so that you can set it up. And then I'll just show you the chocolate. Probably needs a little bit more time, but you get the idea. And then I'll just need a little more time for this to be a little hardened, but that's pretty well, you can see it's sticking to the plate. So that's pretty well hard already. So just imagine the longer you have that in there. And obviously the thicker the chocolate is, the longer it's going to take to set up. But, just give yourself, this is definitely something, if you have people coming over for dinner, which someday we will again, you can do this right before you make dinner, put it in the fridge, and then it's going to be ready for after dinner. So what do you think? That's it. That's it. That's pretty fun, right? I'm so excited. These are just super fun recipes. And this is super dangerous. So last night, David made me a cocktail called the Aviation. We thought it was the Aviator, but it's actually Aviation. I think it should be called the Aviator because that sounds more like a noun, like the Aviator, like the White Russian, like that sounds more like a noun, but it's called the Aviation. Anyway, it was amazing. And because it's very botanical forward, that's what we're going to do in next week's class, which is for the love of whole plant foods. So that one's already up on the website. You can people are already registering for that. And then the week after that, we're doing pizza. So we're going to do pizza dough, we're going to do pizza sauce, and we're going to do a nice drizzle of cashews. It's going to be an homage to a favorite pizza that I get here in the San Francisco Bay Area. You're welcome, Liz. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any more if you have them. If not, you've got the Facebook group. You know where to find me. Ask me any questions you have. If there's anything I didn't get to you. I'm also always interested in other classes that you're interested in. I did, and throw them out here right now. Danielle always sends me, and I actually do save the chat. Danielle always sends me what your suggestions are from the chat. I was doing a live Facebook yesterday and had some really good suggestions from folks. Tell me if you like this idea, because I love it. Thank you, Holly. I shouldn't look, you just threw me off. One idea I thought was really amazing is a tea party. So doing what we would normally make at a tea party. So there could be little tea sandwiches. We can do scones, that kind of thing. Another one that I loved is a Mexican theme. So doing something like tacos or guacamole or salsa, something like that. Even though we did flour and corn tortillas in another class, I love that these are kind of building on each other too, especially since we just did the soy milk from scratch and you see how we use soy milk. And I hope you guys saw the recipe I just put out for the okara pancakes. I used the leftover okara from the soy milk to make pancakes, and I put the recipe out on joyfulvegan.com, so you can go find that over there. But yeah, I love the Mexican idea. I love the tea party idea. What else? Anybody else have suggestions for classes? Hi, Marion. Oh, of course. Oh, so sorry, Marion. I can see why you'd be confused. We've had some classes have been at 12, some have been at 1, and I'm sorry that it's been inconsistent like that because that could lead to confusion. We'll make sure you have this, and you and I will talk. We'll make sure you get set up. Also, next week, the class is on Sunday at 12 o'clock, and from thereafter, the classes will be on Sunday at 12 o'clock. And the reason I do that, I think Sundays just work better for everybody. Works better for Danielle, works better for me. Also, I love going to the farmer's market on Saturdays, and it's harder for me to do that, obviously, if we have the class, but also I want to be able to get ingredients for the class from the farmer's market. So I just think Sundays are going to be better, but we're going to do them at 12, unless otherwise noted, but always check, very carefully, make sure. And yes, it is, obviously, you have to make sure you remember that it's Pacific. Oh, poor Marion, we'll get you set up. So you like the tea party idea? Any other questions? If you like the Mexican idea, good, okay. And a grilling class, I love that too. Yeah, I think that was a suggestion. Maybe you made that yesterday, Molly. We can do a grilling class. And then I'm already ready to do the panzanella salad, which is an amazing bread salad that really, it's better, the fresher the tomatoes are, the better it is. So I'm already thinking of summer recipes like the watermelon and granita, which is a fantastic dessert for summer. And the panzanella, which is fantastic. Fruit pops, I was thinking would be really fun to make as well. So any suggestions you have, I'm open to them. But thank you so much, everybody. Always here for you. I really appreciate your time and your trust, and very grateful to you. So have a wonderful day, and we'll see you another time. Bye, everybody. Bye. Bye. Aw, Marion, we'll get Marion hooked up. Bye, everybody. Aw, next time I want to do a photo. We have to do a photo. I keep forgetting to do a photo. Bye, Deborah. Bye, Molly. Bye, Holly. Bye, Judy. Thanks for coming again. Bye, Liz. Bye. Bye. All right, we're going off. Bye. Now you can see my roots. Oh.